Hey guys, Monkeigh here, and in this video we'll be taking a look at what score streaks we are most likely to see in the upcoming Call of Duty World War II. Now, Call of Duty always seems to have the same few score streaks to start off with, so it's pretty much a given we'll start out with the same spy plane, radar jammer, and care package setup. This list of potential score streaks is from one of the threads over on the Call of Duty World War II subreddit that I set up with a few other YouTube friends. If you'd like to be part of the community and join the discussion about everything relating to the next Call of Duty game, then head on over to the link in the description. As we move up the list, however, there is the potential for many more interesting score streaks. The first lethal streak we might see could be some sort of fighter plane strafe run or artillery strike. The strafe run would be executed by either P-51s, Spitfires, Zeros, or Messerschmitts depending on the team of the player who calls them in. Both the artillery strike and the strafe run streaks are likely to get anywhere from 0 to 3 kills, but of course could get much higher than this on maps with a lot of open areas or game modes with more players. At a slightly higher spot on the list, it's likely that we'll see some form of a bomber run. This would be very similar to the stealth bomber we've seen in past games. One of the streaks that has the most fun potential would be the flamethrower. This was actually a perk in World at War, and it was highly effective as a close-range weapon. The flamethrower score streak could allow the player to have a small amount of extra health and perhaps toggle between the flamethrower and some sort of sidearm. Now, there are different possible ways that this score streak could be implemented. The streak could give players a significantly increased amount of health, but expire after a timer. Alternatively, it could only give players a little bit extra health, but it could expire only when the player is killed. So my guess is that the flamethrower kit will be on a timer, and it will give players a lot of extra health, and the reason for this is it gives a more consistent experience. So players of varying skill levels will all be able to get around the same number of kills when using it. So this is my guess for how it's going to be balanced, but we'll see. Next on the list is the Dogs score streak, which I am sure any longtime Call of Duty fan is going to remember from past games. So this streak had the ability to absolutely turn the tide of a game in favor of any player who managed to unlock them. And I think it is almost definite that we're going to see something very similar in this new game. Last on the list is an idea that I really hope makes it into the final build of this game, but it could be challenging to work into certain map designs, and that is the tank. So in World at War, we saw tanks on some of the larger maps that would spawn in and players would race to get to them. Ultimately, these tanks were removed since they came across as overpowered. And even though the tanks did not work well as a spawn vehicle, I think that they could work well as a top score streak. Now, on smaller maps, these would be very difficult to incorporate, as the narrow passageways would be impossible for a tank to pass through. But on small maps, what could be done is have an outer track around the map that would be easily accessible by the tank. So there's a couple of different ways and variations that something like this could be incorporated, and I think that overall it would be a very fun score streak to use. The tank would be slow, somewhere just faster than the normal walk speed of a player, but slower than the sprint speed so that players could escape if they were caught by it. It would be great, however, if the secondary machine gunner seat was open to a teammate to hop into as well. This would be very, very similar to how the World at War tanks function, and they had a very neat mechanic where the secondary machine gunner, when they were firing, they were exposed to enemy fire because their head would stick up above some of the armor plating, but there was a button that they could hold to duck down behind the shielding, and it would make it much more difficult to hit them. So it's also possible that we could see a game-ending score streak as the top as well, something like the nuke from past games. But personally, I think that something like this would be not as fun as the tank. The tank would be just as effective at ensuring that the team who controls it wins the match, and driving it would frankly just be much more enjoyable than calling in the nuke. So I hope you've enjoyed my list of potential score streaks that we might see in Call of Duty World War II. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.